out, you know that oftentimes you'll hear nothing back. So Mark was kind enough to come back to me and say, not looking for anything right now, but I am running like an incubator on Discord. So he invited me to join that group 2 years ago, and it's been great. I've met a lot of great people there. Met with Mark for lunch last fall, told him about this group. He's kind of in the grassroots himself, so he is kind enough to join us today with a little intro about him, and then hopefully some questions from you guys. I need some water. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sure. I can't see anybody, but I guess you guys can hear me, so I'll try to be brief and be as useful to you guys as possible in terms of what we're doing here. I got into the business about 25 years ago, and I started out in the mailroom, like many people did in an agency, and I was told that in order to get into the business, you either started in the mailroom or you were a PA on set and worked your way up one of those two ways. So I just loved that experience of being around deals and deal making and figuring out what went where in Hollywood, and I ended up in the TV packaging department. And I loved that because although I loved movies, I loved seeing how, back then you could see a television show go from idea to on air within a year. That was the pace of television back then. And it's not like that anymore, but I learned quite a lot, and then I got lucky going out on my own, and I ended up at a management company run by Lou Pitt, who used to be a senior partner at ICM, represented the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and packaged the Terminator movies, made some really innovative deals, invented some new. He was the first guy to put jet fuel in a talent rider, and I worked with him for about 10 years and built up a little bit of a business for myself. And I've also learned a little bit of library rights management. So we represented the Roger Corman Library, we represented the Blake Edwards Library, and a great stories, a great time, and then went out on my own. And for the last 10 years or so, I've been working with the Robert E. Howard Library, which is Conan the Barbarian is the sort of the jewel in the crown of that business, and we've been working on making a few deals, hopefully a few to be announced soon. Also working with some legacy rights, and I've always loved working with writers and directors and producers and financiers, and working figuring out how to help them spend money and spend time. At the moment, working for a company called Tencent, which is a big gaming company, and helping them spend money on making content based on video game IP. And so at the moment, I'm in Belfast, right in the thick of it. We're making something here in Belfast with that company, and having a good time. So I came over here a couple weeks ago. So I apologize if I'm a little off tonight. It's kind of late here, so please forgive me. I'll do the best I can, but we're here and solving some production problems, as you do, and having a great time in the city and working with this team here. So that's kind of the brief overview of where I come from and a little bit of what I'm doing, and right up to the minute, what I'm doing right now, actually. Back over to you guys.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mark. So I'm hoping we'll have some questions for him, but I'll start off with a couple. So this got addressed a little bit on the actors panel, but in terms of actors from Syracuse, how common is it now for someone outside of LA or New York to be able to audition and be able to participate in some of these larger productions that we're seeing?
I think the question was, how common is it for actors outside of Los Angeles to be able to audition, right? So I think most people are self-taping or working with casting directors wherever they are, or being lucky enough to go into a major city and work with somebody that's not necessarily in LA on their tape submissions. So if you're not known, you're self-taping. And, you know, I think one of the things that happened after the pandemic is the business really shifted to being a kind of a virtual business until you're actually in production. So I don't know that, it's unfortunate, but I don't know that there's a need to be, you know, anywhere. If you have access to breakdowns or breakdown services or representation, you can be anywhere in the world and submit yourself to projects or have have your work submitted to projects.
That's great, thanks, Mark. I don't know if you guys heard James, but he can't hear us. It's got to be translated by Joey back there. So the second question I have is, in terms of productions coming to Syracuse, can you tell us about what you think would make Syracuse more attractive? How is it possible to get more productions here at Syracuse?
Yeah, I think Syracuse has a decent production incentive, right? And so this is probably part of the reason why American High ended up in Syracuse. And other than that, it's going to be talented, you know, professionals that are there, crews that are there, and more important than that, probably production incentives, because you can fly people around, talented people, or drive people up, you know, from the city to get the benefit of that uptick for being in a state that has good incentives. So that's really, those are the drivers. Mostly, I think the first question people ask when they're thinking about locations and where to go has to do with production rebates and incentives. And I think that's the big driver, other than, you know, what are your landmarks? Where is the story naturally set? Do we have all the things that a movie would need in terms of locations and crew and creature comforts and restaurants and access points, international airports? You know, all of that is under consideration. But it seems like to me, American High is the beginning of a trend of building a facility that's specific to one filmmaker's vision that can do, you know, multiple outputs. And so that sounds like a terrific hub or base to build work off and figure out how to get plugged into that, and then maybe recreate that to a degree on your own. Take those lessons and extend them out.
Syracuse Airport does have a Dunkin' Donuts. Well, that's great. So I guess we'll open up for questions. Does anybody have anything for Mark they'd like to ask?
Somebody have a question for Mark? Can't see because the ghost has not turned our lights back on. Question? Got a question? Yeah, if you can come meet me part way, please. Or if you meet me most of the way.
Hi, I'm Chris. My question is, how do you take a script and bring it to like full production, from the page to actually getting to principal photography?
I can tell you what we did on this production I'm in the middle of right now. We got some intellectual property. We got some video game rights that we thought would make a good movie. We hired a writer to. We did some, actually, I think first what we did was we got an outline for a sizzle, and because we had some assets from the video game, and we used Unreal Engine to manipulate the characters from the game, from the video game, to make a bit of a test sizzle that tells the story, tells the outline of the movie we wanted to make. And we used that as the basis for pitching to our financiers the belief that we should be not only making this movie, but first, of course, spending money to develop it. And so we passed the first hurdle. It was a bit of a test for ourselves too. Does the story actually feel like it has a moviness to it, and what do we think the outline is, and how does this feel? And then we developed the script, the writer, and then we put the script together with a schedule and a budget, and our little sizzle teaser trailer. We put that together and we submitted that to our financier along with some actor prototypes. This is an animated movie in this case, so we had some voiceover actor prototypes in mind. And we, then got lucky enough to get our green light to make the movie. So we then set about starting pre-production and production planning and figuring out, who all of our key heads would be. We had our director, we had the script, of course, and then we were figuring out our voiceover talent, and we started doing storyboards, et cetera, and getting into actual proper production. So that process took probably about 18 months, all in. Probably about 18 months to get from concept to sort of a teaser, pitch deck, script, budget, schedule, to green light, something like 18 months. As you can imagine, there's just as many paths to getting something from script to production. I mean, a friend of mine wrote Dallas Buyers Club. It took him 20 years to get that script made. It turned out great for him, but 20 years of patience. When we were developing Blood Drive, a TV show, there's a really wild TV show that we did. It was kind of a love letter to Grindhouse TV, Grindhouse movies as a TV show. We were developing that at the same time. I think it was 2016, as the same time that the writer was developing his Severance. So we were developing that, and I think Severance took another, I don't know when the first season came out, but we were already on air and done and wrapped. We unfortunately didn't get a second or a third season like it looks like Severance is gonna get, but that's a really long time for Severance. From 2016 to when the first season aired, that's a really long time for that writer of that pilot script to live on probably $75,000, $100,000, whatever, even if it was $200,000, stretch that money out for that pilot script. That's a long time to develop something before it goes to air and you're really making your inside money, your inside fees on series. So, who knows how long it can take, and the process just these days requires often a lot of packaging or a lot of incredible luck with different ideas at the right time, right place, right right folks around you. Hopefully that answers your question in kind of a general way.
Yeah, one of the actors earlier was talking about if you're in it for the fame or the money, then you're in the wrong profession. And I think acting as well as writing that's true for both, I think.
Writers can make thousands of dollars in this business, and sometimes more. Actors can do a lot better than that.
You could always be an MC and be famous and have no money. Did we have another question for Mark? Oh.
Thank you for speaking with us. I'm Asa, and you said that in the past a show could go from like script to being on air in a year, but now it seems like it takes a lot longer for things to happen, or I don't particularly understand the timeline, but the timeline seems to have expanded more now, like a TV show, like you would watch a TV show like every week and for like a year, but now things like Netflix, it could be more than a year between seasons that are significantly shorter.
What was the question again? I didn't quite catch the question at the end.
My question was like, what like, what is the reasoning for that, or I guess to help understand like why that has shifted?
Yeah, that is a great question. Often it is, okay, so, Severance is an interesting example. You've got a really powerful, busy executive producer slash director in Ben Stiller, and often the more powerful, to make television these days requires a lot of really heavy duty talent. Packaging, the packaging requirement for television is so extreme these days, and so the more big talent you need to have on a show to greenlight the show, or the more layers of talent or amount of big talent you need to make those shows, right? So if you're talking about working with Ben Stiller, everybody else on the show isn't quite as famous or maybe busy as he is. I mean, I'm sure that actors are very busy, but all of those folks have a schedule, and all those folks, particularly if they're famous and they're rich, and they don't need to move at anyone else's pace, and so they work when they want to work, and everybody's going to wait for their notes. And so if their notes aren't ready quickly, what are you going to do? You're going to just wait for them. And so there's a lot of everything has just gotten a little slower as a result of the level of packaging and thought and care and handling that needs to go around all these talents. And so if you also think about working with big, like True Detective is another example. You got to package True Detective up like a movie. And so, all these movie stars have complicated schedules, and you have to work with them and a complicated writer, creator, showrunner, and then you're bringing in directors like Cary Fukunaga, who are also very complicated. So all these schedules have to come together, and you're really writing out and creating these seasons like movies. So they're not really like the old way of making television where they're sort of episodic, churn and burn productions. They really are like stretched out movies. And there's a lot of planning that goes into that, and there's a lot of scheduling that goes into that. And there's just a lot of talent schedule management. And that just slows a lot of things down. And other than that, there's not any other really good reasons for why we have to wait so long between seasons. Other than, talent may have to go do a movie and then come back for the next season to be available for the next season. But there's just a lot more fancy, expensive people that we're waiting for to do the next thing, and all the comments and notes that go into that. I think there's another thing that's happening too, which is the business is contracted a little, quite a bit, and I think we're going to see it a little bit more. There's just there's less people in the middle of the business helping assist the people at the top get the job done efficiently, and so just everything is a little bit slower, and everything is a little bit more complicated for a variety of different reasons. To get clarity, to get mission accomplished and executed with all the other layers out there that are required to make something like a show. Hopefully that's not really a justification, but that's a bit of what I see on my end, certainly in terms of television. In terms of film, it can be the complexity of post-production and also actor schedules management for when people are available and pushing. And if you're making an independent film, raising money, not losing money, that can be obviously a classic delay. If you're making studio pictures, if there's question about money, then it often is a question of VFX. And if it's a big movie, there's so many shots, so many VFX shots, so much post-production, a lot of delays in that. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of tech involved in that as well, and the tech can break and it can delay things as well. There's just a multitude of reasons for big movies delaying. hopefully that's a little bit of a more broad answer.
That's great. Any other questions for Mark?
I think we all understand that it's after midnight where Mark is at. He's probably not done working for the day. Did you have a question? One more.
Mark, Joe Cunningham here. Thank you so much for doing this. We really love having you. As a fellow producer, it takes so much tenacity to get a project done. What is your recommendation for anybody who's trying to get a project off the ground in terms of getting it done, renewing your tenacity throughout the project, no matter how long it takes? And then what is your dream project and dream talent to work with? Thank you.
I heard what is your dream project and talent? I heard that part of the question. I think I missed the first two questions. Would you mind, could somebody repeat that for me? I'm sorry.
Joe said he understands that it takes a lot of work and a lot of tenacity to get a project up off the ground and going. How do you maintain that tenacity? How do you keep yourself going to get through it?
That's a really great question. You have to be psychotically optimistic. You have to remember you only need one yes. All the no's don't count. Ignore the noise, ignore the naysayers. You have to believe and never give up on the idea that you care most about. And then allow that idea to lead you to a greater idea. I'm not saying ignore feedback. You've got to listen, you've got to learn. Part of the tenacity, part of it, for me, I can only really speak for myself, and all those things are obviously things that I believe. You've got to love learning. You've got to be able to admit that you don't know everything, and you gotta love learning, and you gotta love learning with a lot of different people who are all very complicated, or some people more than others. Complicated, interesting people. So putting those puzzles together is really, you've got to be one of those people that likes to do them, and then it's fun, because then you're gonna